Just going to give a little intro to TIER before we kind of get into the meat of things. I decided to write a mission statement last night. Now that the project's over, at least the formal part of the project's over. But I think these are all things we've talked about in the past, but this has been the mission of TIER, and it's really, I think, pretty unique, which is both develop things that are novel and see if they actually work in these very challenging environments of developing regions. And I would argue that if you don't close that loop, you can't know the value of what you're working on. And so I'm hoping this methodology, as difficult as it is, will continue to grow in popularity. And that includes the hardest part, which is not just doing the pilot, but actually trying to figure out what are all the things you're going to need to do to get it to scale. And you'll hear about one example we have where I feel like it really did scale and really is sustainable. We're also trying to combine EECS and social science, and there are both types in the room, and I feel like this has been a pretty big success of the project. That I wouldn't call myself a social scientist yet, but I feel like I can at least read the papers now. And I can know what most of the words mean. A lot of it is a vocabulary issue, actually, right? That they are different disciplines with different value systems. We're going to have a panel discussion on that value system merging that we have to do to make this a stronger field. The particular reason we're here today is because this is the kind of the end of the first phase of TIER, I would say. TIER was an NSF ITR grant. ITR was a special program that NSF did that essentially said, send us your best ideas. What was unique about it is that it was not a computer science call for proposals. It was independent of field. They haven't really had a call since then. And in fact, there's no current calls at NSF for which this project is really even, acceptable. Right? So that's a problem for which I'm going to work with NSF on. But bottom line is they did fund this project. It was very well received. They fully funded it, which, if you know NSF, is very rare. You usually ask for a certain amount of money. They give you less, often a lot less. But it was the top reviewed proposal. I should say who was on it. John Canny, Isha Ray, Stephen Weber, Tom Khalil helped quite a bit, and Vijay Subramanian. So that's why we're here. It's the end of that 5 years, and I just wanted to kind of take stock and celebrate a little bit, but also we've been in the process of building community, and the community's here. So thank you for coming. So just a little bit of some of the things you're going to see today. The content of TIER is very broad, broader than I would have intended, and in some sense broader than is reasonable. And I tried to figure out why it is so broad, and the short answer seems to be that you can't, in developing regions, you don't know where the solution is going to come from. So if you're trying to solve the problem and that takes precedence, then you use whatever technology makes a difference. And that pushes you in a very broad array of technologies. And that's what's happened, but I don't regret it. I think it's been a fine thing. Several things here, like power, we were not planning to cover. In retrospect, it was an obvious thing that we left out. The other thing I would say about this is the style of TIER has been to essentially follow the students and follow the partners. So, it's opportunistic, which means if we find a really good partner or students particularly passionate about a particular problem, that takes precedence. And that also causes us to be very diverse, right? We're not really having a top-down agenda, which is something I'll get back to in a minute. So I would say breadth is the natural order, I would say, of work in developing regions. If you're doing it right, it's going to end up broad. There's a whole bunch of people involved. I tried not to leave anyone off. I almost certainly did. I would point out a few things. We had some wonderful guides. Not technically, faculty or staff in TIER, but have been. All of them are here. Anna will be here tomorrow. Intel Research has played a big role in this, and they're here as well. Intel has put covered the salary of those researchers as well as paid for a lot of equipment and really been a fantastic partner. We have 10 PhDs graduating right about now. So all you people that have jobs, you should look at that list closely. It's a fantastic group of students. Some of them are taken, the ones that are marked. You can try to steal them. And more students coming, and I'm hoping to have a kind of a second generation of students, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end. But it's, I can say this is the best group of students I've ever had. Yes. We're in a lot of countries. The ones in yellow are countries that we're in right now. The ones in white are countries we've been in the past. That's pretty good for 5 years. We started in India, so India has most of the focus, but most of our recent work has been split really between India, Uganda, and Ghana. And I wanted to point out that I think for a computer science project in particular, actually for any university project, it's rare you have real impact on people. These are people who we restored their vision, at least indirectly. I have 7 shown here. I think the current number is above 14,000. So that's a highlight. This is pretty self-explanatory. I just wanted to point out that I'm kind of shocked how many people signed up for this workshop. This is a local university workshop with no refereed papers. Are you trusting our judgment that there's some content here you want to see? And I think you'll find that this is competitive with real conferences in terms of the quality of the content. But I think what's really going on is there's a need for these kinds of venues. And we're creating some. The best one is probably ICTD, which was created by TIER and TIER affiliates, Anno Saxenian at Berkeley, Kentaro Toyama at Microsoft Research. The first one was here at Berkeley in 2006. Now it had, I think, 200 plus submissions. Is that right? Can you verify that? Right? Remarkable, right? That's very competitive conference all of a sudden, which is going to be too bad for us. We have to work a little harder. And Bill Gates is the keynote. I think you can say you've arrived if Bill Gates is giving your keynote. So again, not TIER's doing, but just we should also celebrate the fact that this field has come a tremendous way in 5 years. Right? There's many different institutions involved now that were not involved before. And while Berkeley was certainly early, TAP was early at UW, Kentaro was early at Microsoft, CMU had lots of early efforts, and Tim certainly has been in this space a long time. So it's been coming, and I think it's safe. I feel certain relief that it's here, right? Because it's been a lot of work personally to get it off the ground. I would also not say that it's safe. Funding is very hard right now. It's not super clear to me. Again, if I resubmit the same tier proposal, even if I told them exactly what the results would be, it's not clear it would get funded today, which is ridiculous, right, compared to things that are being funded. So it needs a little work. And it's not actually, even NSF says it's ridiculous because the issue is not the quality of the work, it's the stovepipe nature of funding. It's very hard to fund things that are so broad and cross so many disciplines, right? And that's a structural issue we have to deal with. So where to next? I think we do need to follow on to TIER. That's one of the things I want to get some feedback on over the next 2 days. I want it to be, it can't just be TIER for lots of reasons, but the biggest reason is there are new players like TAP and Jenna that are new faculty at the iSchool that, need to be included as equal partners, not as sub-pieces of TIER. Right? So it needs to be more inclusive than I think a Tier 2 would imply. But whatever works, I'm happy with. I'd also say there's been broad interest from other parts of the campus where we could take, not just social science, but actually some of the business things, economics, public health, we've had a little bit of interaction with, that could be broader. Education, faculty, we've had a little bit of interaction with, that could be stronger. So there's all kinds of opportunities, and it's really not defined. It's an open question, what would be the right kind of center to try and set up and try and fund. And the mix of funding is going to have to continue to be basically as broad as we can go. Right now, we don't really do foundation funding, but we've done great with corporations and great with NSF in the past. I'm worried about the future. So we'll see where that goes, but that's another goal of this workshop, is to kind of try and understand what should be at Berkeley and how would you like to participate. And the last thing I want to put on is where I think this center needs to go. And this is a bigger picture, but I really believe the lesson from TIER, and the reason TIER is so broad, is that it's lots of little projects that are bottom up. And my claim is those are the projects that work. And the interesting thing is the original model for top-down financing was simply that that's how the money flowed. And I think one point that I want to make very clear is the money is there for bottom-up projects. It's actually larger than the top-down money by quite a bit. There's $40 billion a year that flow from relatives back to their home villages. $40 billion every year. That money is used for bottom-up development. It's used for wells. It's used for phone minutes. It's used for all kinds of things, but it's not well understood, and it's certainly not typically used for technology. Microfinance is another $10 billion that's bottom-up financing. Right, so the money is there. The top-down money is not the reason to not do bottom-up development. And it's much easier now with cellular and the internet. These are technologies that make small projects in remote places tractable in a way that they weren't historically. Right? And both of those, cellular and the internet and several other things, were not top-down projects, I might point out. They themselves were bottom-up technology deployments. As was microfinance, as was remittances. Right? So I just feel like bottom-up projects work, and they work because they're filling an actual need. Right? The people know what their needs are. Right? We don't know what their needs are. Right? And in particular, we don't know what their needs are going to be several years down the road, which is the time frame from which you decide on something to when it might actually get implemented. Right. So there's something fundamental in my mind to being on the ground, hearing the real problems, and developing stuff very iteratively, just grounded in reality, literally. So that's kind of where I feel like if there is a next center, this is what it's about. It's kind of what TIER's about now, but not as formally as this. And this has all kinds of implications for development that I don't understand. So we do need help. All right. And finally, it's not about ICT only. Actually, power, clean water, and cook stoves all fit this model. They're all technologies that really ought to be and are being deployed bottom up. Okay. I'm going to stop here and switch gears. This is our opening intro. I'm very happy all of you are here. It's actually, apparently 150 people. They're not all here in the room physically, although it looks like there's 100 here now. So we'll have some break times. Do, meet the students. They're great. Meet each other. You're great too. It's a fun community. Our sponsors, if you feel like I put you too low on the list, it's sorted by money donated. So you can move up in the future. Opportunities are available. All right. Now, I don't actually know how we're doing our transition. We didn't talk about our transition. What is our transition? I'm now emceeing, and that means I'm introducing Tim, which I'll have to do from memory. But you should have his slides on. Okay. We're going to take every slide. So I don't think I can do this without notes. The short version is we wanted an outside perspective on development from someone that's been in the space. And Tim Unwin runs a large part of the UNESCO in their efforts in development. He also does United Nations global, I'm not going to get it right, their big technology and aid project. He also loves wine, which is another personal attraction for me. And the short version is I apologize for not being prepared because I forgot I was doing this. And I have notes at home, but they're not reachable. But you can have them.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks.